The dust kicked up by the tires of the old Ford pickup truck settled slowly over the gravel parking lot. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon at the Whispering Pines shooting range, just 10 miles outside of Camp Lejeune. The air smelled of pine needles, gun oil, and the humid heat of the North Carolina summer. Sarah Jenkins stepped out of the truck. She was 55 years old, though the lines around her eyes and the silver strands in her messy bun made her look a little older. She wore faded blue jeans, comfortable work boots, and a loose-fitting flannel shirt despite the heat. To the casual observer, she looked like a grandmother getting ready to work in her garden, or perhaps a schoolteacher on summer break. There was nothing about her posture that screamed threat. She walked around to the bed of the truck and lowered the tailgate with a rusty creak. From the back, she pulled out a hard-shell gun case. It wasn't the tactical black cases the young men usually carried. It was a soft gray, covered in stickers of flowers and birds. 3 young men were already at the firing line, occupying benches 3, 4, and 5. They wore high-end tight haircuts, tight t-shirts, and tactical pants. Their gear was brand new, expensive, and laid out with military precision. They were Marines, likely fresh out of boot camp and infantry training, enjoying a day off to show off their skills. Sarah walked to bench number 1, the furthest from the group. She set the case down gently. One of the Marines, a tall corporal with a loud laugh named Miller, nudged his buddy. "Hey, check it out. Grandma's here to shoot squirrels." The other 2, distinctively younger privates named Davis and Rico, snickered. They watched as Sarah unlatched the case. When she opened it, the sunlight caught the contents, and Miller let out a loud, barking laugh. "Oh my God," Miller shouted, not bothering to lower his voice. "Is that a toy? Did you steal that from a toddler?" Lying in the foam of Sarah's case was a rifle. But it wasn't black, olive drab, or camouflage. The entire stock and barrel were Cerakoted a bright, blinding safety orange. It looked like a traffic cone. It looked ridiculous. Sarah didn't look up. She ignored the laughter drifting down the line. Her hands moved with slow, deliberate care. She lifted the orange rifle. It was a bolt action, fitted with a scope that seemed too large for what looked like a plastic toy. "Hey, ma'am," Miller called out, walking over to the line between their benches. "You know this is a live-fire range, right? The airsoft course is down the road near the mall." Sarah paused. She placed the rifle on the sandbag rest. She reached into her bag and pulled out a box of ammunition. "I know where I am, son," she said softly. Her voice was calm, carrying a slight rasp. "Just making sure," Miller grinned, looking back at his friends for validation. "I wouldn't want you to get hurt when real weapons go off. That thing is bright." "What is it? A hunting rifle for clowns?" Davis and Rico doubled over laughing. Sarah adjusted the scope caps. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. There was a sadness in her eyes that these boys were too young to recognize. "It's just a rifle," Sarah said, turning her back to him to arrange her spotting scope. "It's an embarrassment, is what it is," Miller muttered, loud enough for her to hear. "Disgrace to the craft. If my sergeant major saw me holding an orange gun, he'd have me scrubbing latrines with a toothbrush for a month." Sarah stopped moving. Her hand hovered over the bolt of the orange rifle. For a second, the air around her seemed to grow colder, despite the oppressive sun. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and whispered a name the boys couldn't hear. Emily. She wasn't there for them. She was there for Emily. And she wouldn't let a few boys with egos ruin the anniversary. The noise at the range was usually rhythmic, the crack of rounds, the ping of steel. But today, the rhythm was broken by the constant heckling from bench 3. Miller, Davis, and Rico had decided that Sarah was their entertainment for the afternoon. They fired their AR-15s rapidly, spraying bullets downrange at the paper targets. Their accuracy was decent, but their discipline was sloppy. They were showing off, fueled by youth and the arrogance of being newly minted warriors. Sarah sat quietly on her stool. She hadn't fired a shot yet. She was simply staring through her scope, adjusting the turrets with precise clicks. She doesn't even know how to load it, Rico joked, reloading his magazine. She's been sitting there for 10 minutes just playing with the knobs. Miller walked closer to Sarah's bench, crossing the invisible line of courtesy. He stood right behind her. "You need help with that, lady?" Miller asked, his voice dripping with mock helpfulness. "The safety is usually the little switch on the side. You know, so you don't blow your foot off." Sarah turned slowly on her stool. She looked Miller up and down. She saw the way he stood, his weight shifting, his eyes scanning her gear with disdain. "I know how to operate the weapon, Corporal," she said. Miller bristled at the rank. He hadn't worn his uniform, yet she knew. "You military spouse or something? Your husband explain it to you?" "Something like that," Sarah lied. It was easier than the truth. Miller reached out and tapped the bright orange stock of her rifle with his index finger. It's ugly. Why would you paint a weapon this color? It's tactical suicide. You can be seen from a mile away." "Don't touch my gear," Sarah said. Her voice didn't rise, but it hardened. It was the tone of a parent stopping a child from running into traffic. Miller pulled his hand back, mocking surrender. "Whoa, easy there, Annie Oakley. Just trying to give you some advice. In the real world, camouflage matters. That thing is a joke." "This isn't the real world," Sarah said, turning back to the range. "This is a shooting range in North Carolina. And the color isn't for camouflage. Then what's it for?" "Fashion." Miller laughed. Sarah looked down at the orange stock. She ran her thumb over a small engraving near the trigger guard. "EJ, Forever 22. My daughter," Sarah said quietly. Her favorite color was orange. She wanted to build a rifle this color. She never got the chance. The silence hung for a brief second, but Miller was too caught up in his own performance to let it land. He snorted. "Right. Well, tell her to pick a better color next time. That thing is an eyesore." That was the moment the shift happened. Sarah's shoulders stiffened. The sadness in her eyes evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp steel. She stood up. She wasn't tall, but suddenly, she seemed to loom over the young corporal. "You talk a lot, Marine," Sarah said. "You spray a lot of lead down there. But I haven't seen you hit the bullseye on the 300-yard target yet." Miller's face went red. "I hit the silhouette. That's a kill shot." "A kill shot in combat, maybe," Sarah said. "But here? You're just making noise. You're sloppy." The other two Marines went silent. Miller's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, towering over her. "Sloppy?" Miller spat. "I graduated expert marksman last week. Who are you to call me sloppy? You haven't even fired a round." "I don't waste rounds," Sarah replied. "Prove it," Miller challenged. He pointed downrange. "Put your money where your mouth is, Grandma. Let's see what that orange toy can do." The challenge hung in the hot, stagnant air. Other shooters at the far end of the range had stopped firing, sensing the tension. They took off their ear protection and watched. Miller crossed his arms. "Tell you what. $500. We pick a target. Best grouping wins." Sarah looked at him. $500 was a lot of money. She lived on a pension and the small disability check she received from the VA. But this wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the disrespect. Not to her, but to the rifle. To Emily. "I don't want your money," Sarah said. "Scared?" Miller smirked. "Figured. All talk." I don't want your money, she repeated. But if I win, you apologize. To the rifle. And then you pack up your gear, you leave this range, and you don't come back today. Miller laughed, looking at Davis and Rico. You hear that? She wants an apology. Deal. And when I win, you give me that orange monstrosity so I can throw it in the dumpster where it belongs. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Deal. Stationary target at 300 yards. Miller asked, reaching for his AR-15. No, Sarah said. She walked over to the range control box mounted on the pillar behind the benches. It was a computerized system that controlled the advanced tactical targets, steel plates that moved on tracks, simulating running enemies. Turn on the movers, Sarah said. Level 5 speed. Miller blinked. Level 5? That's the erratic sprint. Nobody hits those without a machine gun. You can't hit those with a bolt action. Are you backing out? Sarah asked. Miller gritted his teeth. Fine. Level 5. 5 targets. Most hits wins. Miller went first. He lay prone on the concrete, bracing his rifle with a bipod. He looked the part of a warrior. He adjusted his breathing. Ready, he shouted. The buzzer sounded. Downrange, 400 yards away, the steel silhouettes began to dart back and forth on the rails. They moved fast, stopping unpredictably, changing direction. Miller opened fire. Crack. 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 Dust kicked up all around the targets. He was firing fast, trying to track the movement. He emptied a 20-round magazine in seconds. Ping. Ping. He hit steel twice. 2 hits. Rico cheered. That's impossible speed. 2 hits is good. Miller stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked smug. Hitting erratic movers at 400 yards with a standard rifle was incredibly difficult. 2 hits out of 5 targets, even with 20-round spray, was considered decent for a standard infantryman. Top that, Miller said, gesturing to the bench. You got a bolt action. You have to chamber a round for every shot. By the time you reload, the target is gone. You lose, lady. Sarah sat down at the bench. She didn't lie prone. She sat on the stool, resting the orange rifle on the sandbag. She reached into her pocket and pulled out 5 rounds. Just 5. She loaded them into the internal magazine. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. She's not even going prone, Davis whispered. She's not stable. Sarah adjusted the scope one last time. She wrapped her left arm into the sling, tightening it against her bicep, a technique that was old school, something they didn't teach much anymore. It locked the rifle to her body like a vice. She settled her cheek against the stock. She became a statue. Ready, she whispered. The range officer, an old man named Gus who had been watching silently from the shop, pressed the button. Downrange, the first steel target popped up and sprinted left. For Sarah, the world slowed down. This was a neurological trick she had learned 30 years ago. The tunnel vision set in. The heat, the flies, the mocking laughter of the boys, it all faded into a gray blur. The only thing that existed was the crosshair. She didn't see a steel target. She saw the memories. She saw Emily. Emily, who had joined the Marines to be just like her mom. Emily, who had been deployed to a dusty province in the Middle East. Emily, who had been killed not by a bullet, but by an IED while on patrol. Emily had loved bright colors. She had been vibrant, loud, and full of life. When Sarah built this rifle, she painted it orange to scream at the world that her daughter existed. Target 1 moving left to right. Speed, 10 miles per hour. Sarah led the target. She calculated the windage in a fraction of a second. The wind was blowing 5 miles per hour from the east. Her finger curled around the trigger. It was a crisp, 2-pound pull. Boom. The rifle kicked into her shoulder. The sound was deeper, louder than the boy's AR-15s. It was a .300 Winchester Magnum, a heavy, long-range caliber. Clang. The sound of the bullet striking the steel plate echoed back a second later. The target dropped. Miller's jaw dropped slightly. "Luck," he muttered. Sarah didn't hesitate. Her right hand flew to the bolt. Up, back, forward, down. The motion was fluid, so fast it looked like a machine. She didn't take her eye off the scope. She didn't blink. Target 2. Moving away and right. Erratic zigzag. She tracked it. She breathed out, emptying her lungs halfway, holding the pause. Boom. Clang. Target 2 dropped. Miller stopped talking. Davis and Rico stood up straight. Target 3. The rabbit. It popped up for only 3 seconds, moving fast across the berm. Sarah cycled the bolt. The brass casing from the previous shot flew through the air, spinning in the sunlight, landing on the concrete with a chime. She fired. Boom. Clang. 3 for 3. With a bolt-action rifle. Against erratic moving targets at 400 yards. "No way," Miller whispered. That's computer-controlled. She's cheating." But there was no cheating physics. Sarah was in the zone. She was the Orange Ghost, a nickname she hadn't heard in 20 years. Part 5, 5 for 5. The fourth target was the hardest. It was designed to simulate a runner taking cover. It moved, stopped, dropped, and moved again. Sarah cycled the bolt. Her shoulder was throbbing. The .300 Win Mag was a punishing caliber to shoot from a bench without a muzzle brake, but she didn't flinch. She waited. The target stopped. Most shooters would fire then. Sarah didn't. She knew the pattern. It was about to drop. She lowered her crosshair slightly. The target dropped, right into her line of fire. Boom. Clang. 4 down. The entire range was silent now. Every shooter on the line had stopped. They were watching the woman with the bun and the flannel shirt operate a neon orange rifle like a surgeon operating a scalpel. 1 round left. 1 target left. Miller looked pale. He knew what was happening. He was watching a master class in marksmanship, and he was the one who had bet against it. The fifth target was the Charger. It moved straight toward the shooter, bobbing up and down. It was the hardest target to range because the distance was constantly changing. Sarah cycled the bolt for the final time. The brass casing hit the floor. She breathed in. She thought of the funeral. The folded flag. The silence of her empty house. "This one is for you, Em," she whispered. She didn't wait for the target to get close. She took the shot while it was still 350 yards out. Boom. The recoil rocked her back. For a second, there was silence. No sound. And then, faint but clear, clang. The target fell. 5 shots. 5 hits. 5 moving targets. Sarah opened the bolt, clearing the weapon. She left the action open, safed the rifle, and stood up. She brushed the dust off her jeans. She turned to the 3 Marines. They stood with their mouths open, staring at the orange rifle as if it were a holy relic. Miller couldn't speak. His arrogance had been shattered, replaced by a confusing mix of humiliation and awe. "That was..." Rico stammered. "That was impossible." Sarah looked at Miller. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. Her face was stone. "Apologize," she said. Part 6, The Salute. Miller swallowed hard. His face was beet red. He looked at his friends, then at the ground, then at Sarah. Miller started. He looked at the rifle. I apologize. It's a good rifle. And? Sarah pressed. And I was wrong to disrespect it. Or you, Miller mumbled. Sarah nodded once. Pack your gear. Miller looked like he wanted to argue, but the shame was too heavy. He started to dismantle his rifle. Just then, a black sedan pulled up to the gravel lot, throwing up a cloud of dust. It wasn't a civilian car. It had government plates. Two men in suits stepped out, followed by a man in a military uniform. He wore the stars of a major general. Miller froze. Attention, he screamed, snapping to a rigid salute. Davis and Rico followed instantly. The general ignored them. He walked straight toward bench number 1. He walked with a limp. Miller's eyes widened. It was General Vance, the base commander of Camp Lejeune. Why was he here? The general walked up to Sarah. He didn't look at the Marines. He looked at the woman in the flannel shirt. I heard the report from the range master, the general said, his voice gruff but warm. 5 for 5 on the movers. You haven't lost your touch, Master Sergeant. Miller's heart stopped. Master Sergeant? Sarah smiled, a genuine, tired smile. Just keeping the rust off, General. The general looked at the orange rifle. He reached out and touched the stock gently. Is this hers? It is, Sarah said. She'd be proud, Sarah. Damn proud. The general turned to look at the 3 young Marines who were still holding their salute, trembling slightly. At ease, the general barked. They dropped their hands. Do you boys know who this is? The general asked, pointing to Sarah. No, sir, Miller squeaked. This is Master Sergeant Sarah Jenkins, the general said. Lead sniper instructor for the Scout Sniper program for 12 years. First woman to hold the title. She has more confirmed hits in combat zones than the 3 of you have brain cells combined. Miller looked like he was going to be sick. He had just mocked a legend. He had mocked his instructor's instructor. She retired 5 years ago, the general continued, after her daughter, Lance Corporal Emily Jenkins, was killed in action. That rifle is a tribute. The general looked at Miller's bench, seeing the messy gear and the lack of discipline. I saw the footage from the range camera, the general said quietly. I saw you mocking a superior officer. I saw you mocking a Gold Star mother. Miller was pale as a sheet. Sir, I didn't know. Ignorance is not an excuse for disrespect, Marine, the general snapped. You owe her more than an apology. Sarah stepped forward. She placed a hand on the general's arm. It's okay, Tom. He apologized. He's leaving. She looked at Miller. The anger was gone now. She just saw a boy who had a lot to learn. The rifle is orange, Sarah said to Miller, so that I never forget what was taken from me. You wear that uniform so that others don't have to feel that loss. Respect the gear. Respect the history. Or take the uniform off. Miller nodded, tears of humiliation welling in his eyes. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am. Go, she said. The 3 Marines grabbed their gear in record time and practically ran to their car. Sarah turned back to the bench. She began to pack the orange rifle back into the case with the flower stickers. You still got it, Sarah, the general said. We could use you as a consultant. The new recruits, they lack focus. Sarah closed the case and latched it. She patted the plastic lid. No thank you, Tom, she said. I've got a garden to tend to. And I think I've done enough teaching for one day. She picked up the case, the orange toy, safe inside. As she walked back to her rusty Ford truck, the general stood at attention and held a slow, respectful salute until she drove away, leaving the dust to settle once again over the quiet range.